Okay. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Chief Floyd Mitchell of the Oakland Police Department. Today we're going to highlight some of the great work being done by the men and women of the Oakland Police Department. We're going to start off though by having Deputy Chief Kody Johnston discuss the department's safety plan for this weekend's NBA All-Star event. That's going to the events that are going to take place throughout Oakland. Then we're going to have Deputy Chief Frederick Shavies talk a little bit about and update some of the recent arrests regarding some of the homicides that have taken place in our city. Then I'm going to finish up and give you an update regarding the attempted murder of one of our officers that occurred early Monday morning. Chief Shavies.
All right. Good afternoon. So as most of you know, we experienced an uptick in violent crime incidents as we closed out 2024 and began 2025. I want to provide a few updates on some of those cases. So on December 30th, 2024, just after 9 p.m., OPD patrol officers responded to a ShotSpotter call in the 4300 block of Fleming Avenue in East Oakland. Upon arrival, officers located Kody Johnston suffering from one gunshot wound. Mr. Johnson was transported to a local hospital where he unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. Homicide investigators, working hand in hand with the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, were able to locate and arrest the suspect, Mr. Juan Montiel, on January 31st of this year at a local chop shop. Investigators presented the case to the Alameda County District Attorney's Office on February 4th of this year, and the suspect, Juan Montiel, was charged with murder. Later that night or early the next morning, on December 31st, OPD patrol officers responded to a report of a shooting in the 1300 block of 14th Street. Upon arrival, officers located Mr. Willie Bernstine suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Unfortunately, Mr. Bernstine was pronounced deceased there on scene. On February 4th, Joseph Westbrook was arrested for his involvement in the murder of Mr. Bernstine. During that arrest and subsequent search warrant executions, 3 assault rifles and 4 pistols were recovered by the Oakland Police Department. On February 5th, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office charged Westbrook with murder. On January 2nd of this year, just before midnight, officers were dispatched to the 2200 block of East 12th Street to investigate the report of a shooting and a vehicle collision. Once on scene, officers found the victim, Darnisha Williams, in a stolen vehicle, suffering from at least 1 gunshot wound. Unfortunately, Ms. Williams succumbed to her injuries later that night or earlier the next morning at a local hospital. Investigators, with the help of patrol and special resource officers, were able to quickly identify the suspect. On February 11th, the suspect, Lene Adams, was located and arrested for her involvement in the murder of Ms. Williams. During the suspect's arrest and subsequent search warrant executions, 2 pistols and 1 assault rifle were recovered. The case will be presented to the District Attorney's Office for charging this week. On January 26th of this year, just before 8 p.m., officers responded to a sideshow ShotSpotter related call in the 900 block of East 12th Street. Officers located an unoccupied stolen vehicle abandoned in the intersection there. Officers located numerous shell casings scattered about the intersection. Officers were then advised that multiple individuals were arriving at local hospitals suffering from gunshot wounds. Mr. Ethan Pereira, who arrived at the hospital, was pronounced deceased shortly thereafter, suffering from gunshot wounds related to this incident. On February 6th, a juvenile suspect as well as his co-defendant, Leonardo Perez Baltazar, were arrested. 1 rifle and 3 pistols were recovered during that arrest. Both suspects have been charged with the murder of Mr. Pereira and various firearms-related offenses by the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. And lastly, I want to talk about an incident that occurred in 2023. I'd like to give an update on a case that occurred on March 18th of that year, just after 5 a.m., in which Miss Yolanda Calmo Lorenzo was shot inside her residence in the 1400 block of 84th Avenue while lying in bed asleep next to her young child. Investigators found that that the victim had been killed by her boyfriend, Geronimo Pablo Carrillo, and after nearly 2 years, on January 31st, 2025, the suspect, Geronimo Carrillo, was located and placed under arrest by the U.S. Marshals in Jackson, Michigan. The Alameda County District Attorney's Office has since charged Carrillo with murder. We are grateful to the community for support, the assistance of the U.S. Marshal Service and other federal and law enforcement agencies that assisted us in taking Mr. Carrillo into custody. The Oakland Police Department owes a debt of gratitude to the homicide investigators who worked tirelessly on this case and the others that have been presented. And the investigators worked in partnership with patrol officers, ceasefire officers, and special resources officers, as well as local law enforcement agencies, to include the Alameda County Sheriff's Office, the Richmond Police Department, and the Vallejo Police Department, just to name a few. We continue to work closely with the Department of Violence Prevention as a partner in ceasefire strategy to prevent group and gang violence and to reduce the likelihood of retaliation and to interrupt violence. And thank you. I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Johnson.
Thank you, Chief Shades. All right, hello everyone. I'm Deputy Chief Kody Johnston. And today I'll be discussing the Oakland Police Department's safety plan in preparing for the NBA All-Star Weekend events. First, I want to say that we are excited to be one of the host cities for the NBA All-Star events. The NBA will be holding many events, not just here in the city of Oakland, but also in San Francisco and the greater Bay Area, starting today and going throughout the weekend. As we're preparing to welcome an increase of visitors throughout our city, we are here to keep our residents and those visitors safe. The Oakland Police Department, along with other city departments, are opening our Emergency Operations Center to ensure that we have clear, concise communication with all city departments throughout the NBA-related events that will be taking place starting today and throughout the weekend. We will also be sending an officer over to San Francisco to be in San Francisco's Emergency Operations Center to ensure that we have real-time information and communication sharing between not just our department and our our stakeholders, but also with the San Francisco Police Department. As we know, there'll be many events occurring both in San Francisco and Oakland, and we want to ensure that we have accurate and timely communication between both agencies during these events. The Oakland Police Department will also be increasing its staffing throughout our downtown business districts and throughout the entertainment districts, along with increased staffing at the Oakland Coliseum for the NBA Celebrity Basketball Game, HBCU Basketball Game, and other events throughout the city that will be put on by the NBA. I would also like to ask those coming into our city and our residents to ensure to stay vigilant during this weekend and these week's events, as we know that Oakland Police Department can't do this alone. We're asking, if you see something, say something, as we will have additional staffing on the streets this weekend. Thank you.
I wanted to finish up and talk about an incident that occurred this week. Early on February 10th, Monday morning, a couple of days ago, an Oakland police officer in full uniform operating a fully marked Oakland police vehicle was in the 600 block of Seminary Avenue. This officer was in the area recovering a stolen vehicle which had been abandoned in that intersection. While the officer was sitting in his fully marked patrol vehicle waiting for the tow company, he heard a number of gunshots and realized that he was being shot at and his vehicle was being impacted by these rounds. Thankfully, none of these rounds struck the officer and he was not physically injured during this attack. Responding patrol officers were able to locate the suspect vehicle abandoned approximately a mile away after it was involved in a collision. Investigators responded to the scene, conducted an area canvass, recovered video evidence, and quickly identified the suspect as 35-year-old Robert Blackwell, an Oakland resident. We also received an 11-round ShotSpotter activation in this area regarding this same incident. Of note, in 2015, Mr. Blackwell was arrested for shooting at 2 Oakland police officers who were investigating a murder that had occurred earlier that evening. Mr. Blackwell was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison for that incident. However, he only served less than 4 years. Investigations also found that Mr. Blackwell was currently out on bail for felon in possession of a firearm at the time of his arrest. Less than 12 hours from identifying Mr. Blackwell as in this incident, investigators with the assistance of OPD Special Resource Officers, ceasefire officers, and ceasefire officers were able to take Mr. Blackwell into custody in the 3800 block of Delaware. The Alameda County District Office has charged Mr. Blackwell with willful, premeditated, and deliberate attempted murder on our police officer, with an enhancement for personal use of a firearm during the commission of a felony. I and the members of the Oakland Police Department are grateful for our partnership with the Alameda County District Attorney's Office and applaud the swift filing of charges on Mr. Blackwell in this case. It is unfortunate that in today's society we have individuals that randomly take shots at our police officers, and I'm looking forward to this case being adjudicated in the court of law by our new district attorney and the members of our community. With that, we'll stop and open it up for questions.
Chief, you seem to be making a lot of progress with what you were talking about before with all the arrests, and this comes at a time when your budget, your overtime budget has been slashed, and so how are you being able to balance this and continuing to keep these numbers up with so fewer people due to this overtime?
That's a great.
How are you making that happen? And also, how are you adding people this weekend with that issue?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I will tell you, it starts with my assistant chief, Jimmy Beer. He runs my day-to-day operations, and it also takes the men and women of the Oakland Police Department. They're residents of this city, as am I. They want to see crime go down in this city, and they work hard for this city. Using the ceasefire strategy, we're able to quickly identify and go after these individuals that are involved in violent crime. We're using technology, we're using video cameras. That's how we were able to quickly identify where the rounds came from and who was shooting those rounds at our police officers. But it's not just us. It is the men and women that are out there 2 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night in those patrol cars. It's the investigators, it's the detectives, it's our community that are calling in, giving us tips in regards to who they know is involved in these crimes. So it's a collective that this community is tired of being victimized, and they want to see the work done, and we're doing it.
And are you finding it more difficult with less overtime, or are you managing?
Yeah, you know, the city's in a pretty dire financial strait. So what we're doing is we're trying to police smarter as best as we can. We're using that technology, but it's going to be difficult as we attrition down. So we are working hard to make sure that the mental health of our police officers, the health and wellness of our police officers, trying to pay attention to that because they are being stretched very far. But you know, working with the council as we move forward to try to get an academy started in July, so we can try to keep our numbers at a steady pace.
Move over to Kody.
So, Chief, I don't know if you want to have your deputy chief answer this, or if you want to take it. As far as the NBA All-Star Weekend goes, do you have other outside agencies that are going to be coming into Oakland to assist with some of the security? And also, how much of the overtime and additional officers is being paid for by the city versus either the NBA or some outside entity?
Okay. So I will start off, and then I'll turn it over to DC Johnson. Yes, so we're doing a soft opening of our EOC to have people over here, but the main EOC is going to be over in San Francisco because the big games are going to occur over there. But because there's events occurring over here, we are opening up our EOC. I know that the NBA is paying for specific events that they ask us to help them in regards to escorting and providing security for that. And then the balance of that, we're working in with our on-duty officers and some overtime. But I'll let DC Johnson answer that question. Sure.
Yeah, so we will have an influx of officers this weekend, and as Chief Mitchell stated, the NBA is going to provide funding for a lot of these different functions as they have asked for our assistance. There will be some other outside agencies that will be here in attendance. Some of these agencies will be assisting, and some will be trying to see how we do things here, as they're going to be obviously future NBA All-Stars in other cities and states, and so we'll have some outside agencies from outside the state and within California as well attending, just to see how we are running our operations, to ensure that when it does come to their cities that they are able to do the same that we are.
Chief Johnson.
Yes.
Given that we know that you come off the sideshows, whether or not an all-star game is here or not, do you know if you can have any extra officers that are specific on sideshow duty that will complement all-star duty, or is it just a whole lot of officers going to whatever happens?
Sure. So we will have specific officers set at specific locations for NBA-related events, but we will have additional officers out there to help address some of the sideshow activities if they shall occur. Like I said, we will be staffing our downtown locations where we see our business and entertainment districts. Sometimes we do tend to see sideshows here and also out in East Oakland. So we will have additional staff on hand this weekend.
Let me add to that. And to piggyback on that, we'd love to have a full complement, but we can't. But we're working with our partners, and part of that was reaching out to the NBA saying, hey, you're having these events. We're going to need you to assist us in that because of the situation that we're in. So that's part of it, is working with our partners and those the people that are hosting these events, so they can help us with the financial load that comes with it.
One second. Yeah, you guys mentioned that you're opening your emergency operations center. Tell us a little bit about how that works. What are the?
Sure.
How's it different from your normal?
Sure. So when we do a soft opening or a full opening of our emergency operations center, what that entails is all the different city entities getting together. So the police, fire, our public works, Department of Transportation, the city manager's office. So we all come together and hold weekly meetings to ensure that all the different city functions are preparing for anything that can occur during the NBA related events. And so we want to make sure that everyone is on the same wavelength, that everyone has all the most updated information. We also have partners from the NBA that are in these calls, but really what's happening is when we are opening up our emergency operations center, we're allowing, so everyone is on standby and everyone is on call during these events. So therefore you don't have to try and track down individuals if something does occur that you need that's outside of the police function.
We know that everybody's working really hard at the city. There's a lot of challenges too. Has there been any obstacles or challenges as you get this kind of going, as we get into this all-star? I know there's a lot of eyes on the city nationally, and pressure to get things right. Things moving pretty quickly so far?
Yeah, so I'd love to say thank you to our emergency management team, Jessica Fell and her team. They've done an outstanding job to ensure that any obstacles that may have come up during our preparation leading up to this week have been taken care of. She really went above and beyond, contacted all the different agencies, anyone we thought that should be in the room or have a seat at the table to ensure that there's a smooth planning preparation. She made sure that they were there in attendance to these meetings. So we really it's been a lot of work. There were a few obstacles, but she was able to overcome those obstacles to ensure that we have a seamless outcome.
For the chief, as far as the shooting that you outlined, could you talk about where and how officers found the suspect, and anything you can share about the motive, possible motive as to why someone would shoot at the officer?
I don't believe we have a motive yet, and that may be a better question for Deputy Chief Chaves, but he was taken into custody in the 3800 block of Delaware. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. With regard to motive, investigators are still working that angle. As I said earlier, or as the chief said, officers were in the area recovering a stolen vehicle. We are working backwards from that in order to identify any additional persons or also ascertain what the motive may have been.
Back to All-Star and the preparations for that, how much of this is really about being a visual presence too, to try to deter crime from it happening in the first place? And additionally, are there going to be any roads blocked off or anything like that?
Sure. So the question is how much is additional officers out there more of a deterrent, and if there are going to be roads blocked off? Anytime we can have additional officers out there on the streets, it's always helpful. Visual deterrence definitely helps to deter crime. That is one of the strategies we want to put in place, is to have enough officers out there so people not only feel safe, but they see the presence of law enforcement and know they can't just come in and commit frivolous crime throughout the city during these events. So we definitely will have the staffing out there. I think the visual presence of the increased staffing will definitely help. not only calm kind of the nerves of people that may be coming in that may be a little bit uneasy, but also to deter the criminals that feel like we're going to come into the city of Oakland and try and commit crime on those people that are coming to visit the city for NBA All-Stars. As far as road closures, so I'm going to leave that up to Cap Muniz, who's going to be running our downtown operations. He runs the nightclub operations in our business districts and entertainment districts. His team will be out there, and if they need to close down some certain streets or whatever, we'll be sure to push that out. But as of now, there's no road closures that are going to be that we see as now.
Time for 2 more questions.
Dan, we're going to see this uptick, the opening of the EOC and the uptick in staff starting tomorrow, starting tonight.
It'll be starting tomorrow.
Last question. A lot of people probably coming in from Oakland Airport, taking burgers has always been a problem. We know the smash and grabs at the airport, luggage, whatnot. Any specific things that are going to be happening in that airport area?
Again, I think it goes back to our partners. The Port of Oakland, they pay for extra officers. They pay for that for. And Jimmy, you may have to tell me, it's been the last couple of weeks or last month or so, right? Yeah.
So if I could just add a couple of things, going back to the safety plan and high visibility, it's going to be more than high visibility. There is going to be targeted enforcement. If you come into our city and you victimize any of our community members or businesses or people that are coming here to enjoy the festivities, we will arrest you. There are going to be additional partners that are going to be involved in this weekend's operations. It's not just OPD, because previous questions where you brought up as far as staffing and our lower numbers, we have to leverage our other partners. We're not going to do this by ourselves. It's also involving the community. I will say the California Highway Patrol, they're going to increase their traffic operations in and around our major thoroughfares to include International Boulevard, Broadway, in those areas where we know that people are going to come to frequent and patronize our businesses. I will say when it comes specifically to the airport, the port has authorized additional officers on overtime, which is something that we have been leveraging quite a bit. It doesn't come out of our budget. There's quite a few good partners within the city, private partners, that are actually paying for third-party overtime, not just for their locations, but also the neighboring businesses and neighborhoods. So that will take place in the downtown area. And then for the airport, the Alameda County Sheriff's Department has actually been running operations to combat burglaries. But in conjunction, we will be focusing in the major thoroughfares in and out of the airport as well, with the Port of Oakland's authorization to pay third-party overtime. So it's really a collaborative effort between multiple different departments, and so we can basically get those resources where we need them and really hold people accountable that are doing bad things in our city.
Sir, what's your name?
Assistant Chief James Beer.
When you said targeted enforcement versus just presence, what is it? Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. I can't get into too many details, but what I will say is there will be traffic enforcement in areas where we see bad actors. We're not going to be specific for sideshow, but we will be specific for people that are speeding, running stop signs, or engaging in sideshow. See, like I said, the California Highway Patrol are going to be working certain areas in the city. Our units will be basically covering down in other parts. We will be utilizing technology. We will be communicating with other police departments in the Bay Area, San Francisco Police Department, any other department that technology, we will be interfacing with each other. That information will flow freely and often from their EOC to our EOC to the officers on the ground. And we will follow up. And like the chief said earlier, that technology is a game changer for us, because as our resources have suffered, technology is kind of taking that place, and we will leverage that to its tilt this weekend to basically target the people that are committing the crime.
Jimmy, also talk about when these type of events come to your city, we do see an increase in sex trafficking, and I know we're going to be having some extra folks down there. So talk about what we've been doing with the sex trafficking.
Absolutely. So not just for the high visibility and deterrence, but the one piece that I did say about the increased enforcement will be along International Boulevard, an area that we commonly refer to as the Blade, where prostitution occurs. What we do know is when people are engaging in prostitution, it does have follow-up with violent crimes, shootings, robberies, things of that nature. So that enforcement will be fully marked vehicles, and if available, we'll also have some undercover operations that will be running. We're currently ramping those undercover operations up as we go into the weekend. And we've been working with the Federal Bureau of Investigation hand in hand for many years. And we've been speaking with the agent that's been providing us data to kind of help us kind of mold where our deployments will be and kind of address the issues prior to them coming up. I can't really go into too many details because they are undercover operations and the specifics could jeopardize officer safety as well as the integrity of those investigations.
You mentioned Chief, do you want to wrap us up?
Sure. You know, we're two things. One, we're excited to have the events come to Oakland. We think Oakland can be a great co-host to the events that are going on over in San Francisco and working together with those folks. But again, just talking about the work that the members of our police department, both sworn and non-sworn professionals, are putting in to try to address the crime that is occurring in Oakland. I believe, you know, we talked about it last month. We did see a substantial decrease in violent crime throughout the city of Oakland. We're going to continue to work hard for that.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you all.